Welcome to the Secret Garden podcast. I'm your host, Heather Hamilton. This show is about seeing the whole world as a magical place for secret rendezvous, where we dance, where we express our provocative ideas with courage, where we play and are enchanted with beauty, where the miracles grow and the world reawakens. This garden is watered by you, the listener. Please consider helping it grow by becoming a donor on patreon.com/Heather Hamilton. Now it's time to dance in the garden. Hey everybody. I just actually got off of a different podcast and decided that I would hop on over here and record just a few short reflections. So the podcast discussion that I just had was a panel of people discussing David Bentley Hart's recent book, All Things Are Full of Gods. And one of the panelists was actually David Bentley Hart himself, the author of the book. If you're not familiar with who David is, he is a world-renowned theologian, an Orthodox Christian. And for people who are really well-versed and have studied in, Christian academia and the fields of theology and Christian thought, David Bentley Hart is really a revered figure for many of those people. And if you go look up interviews or lectures or talks or debates that he's given, it will quickly become obvious to you why. The man is brilliant, and he's written countless brilliant books, but All Things Are Full of Gods feels distinct and unique to me. We even discussed the cover, the beauty of the cover, where it has a certain essence and quality to it that actually tells you a lot about the book before even opening it. I was reminded in the conversation of the story of Buddha's greatest sermon, where he just puts a lotus flower on the stage or wherever he was, and has people look at it silently. And finally, there's one man who simply smiles and basically understood the sermon, understood the essence, the essential quality, the unique God that was the lotus flower, and experienced the lotus flower in its full essence and radiance and beauty and divinity. And so that was the sermon. And that's what I was reminded of with the cover of All Things Are Full of Gods. And so we got to discuss that. And David he seemed pleased that recognition about the cover was stated, and I think that it's important. So the essence of the book is really 4 different gods discussing the nature of consciousness, the nature of reality, and debating and pushing back against a materialist worldview that essentially denies consciousness, that sort of treats everything like data and numbers and, lifeless particles that just come together and have no inherent meaning. And in the book, the 4 gods are essentially arguing that consciousness and meaning emerge out of the infinite different physical forms that we observe in our world, including ourselves. Hence the title, All Things Are Full of Gods. That there is a consciousness that you could call God, acting upon everything in the material world, but also emerging up out of each individual particle of matter in the material world. And so therefore, everything insists on meaning, that meaning is inherent in everything, both on a macro and a micro level. And so a picture that came to mind as we were having this really high level discussion, but I love to distill things into symbols and pictures and metaphors, was the picture of the burning bush from the Old Testament, Moses and the burning bush, where essentially he observes God in its fullness with the fire, you know, ablaze, the bush ablaze, but not being consumed. And this is the essential quality of everything. It wasn't that this bush burst into flames spontaneously in front of Moses and then he noticed it. It was the bush was always ablaze. It was simply that he suddenly recognized that or awakened to that reality, which is ultimate reality. So Moses removes his shoes and declares that this is holy ground. And it wasn't that the ground suddenly became holy when the bush burst into flames. It was that Moses recognized that the ground was always holy, that the bush was always burning. We see this reflected in Christ later on in the Transfiguration, where we see Christ in the fullest reality. What was always true about him is radiating with glory and divinity. And that is the final reality for all of us, for everything in the material world. We are all participating in this radiance, in this beauty, in this divinity, and it is inherent. And as souls with physical bodies, there is an insistence and a trajectory to our lives and to us realizing this final end for ourselves. The hope of glory, the final revelation of who we are in our glory, being at one with God, but also being distinct manifestations of consciousness, of love, of radiance. We're all distinct. There's unity, but there's also multiplicity, and the multiplicity is bound together by this one unity. But the revelation of the mystery of consciousness is revealed in all of us distinctly and in everything that we can observe in the material world. And so I loved that David Bentley Hart wrote this book, that he really gets down into the nitty-gritty about, from where does consciousness emerge. I'm not going to try to explain the whole book. It's really detailed. If you're interested, you can go read it yourself or look up interviews of him discussing it. But it called to mind this idea of the burning bush, and that is an ever-present reality that is always true. And the purpose of spirituality, of religion, is to awaken us to this truth so that we truly understand our own meanings in life, so that we truly understand our oneness with God and can allow God or this consciousness to move through us as if we were an instrument, and so that our nature is cooperating with this macro level of nature, which insists on moving through us towards our destiny and for a certain purpose. And so that's my thought for today. When the interview with David Bentley Hart and the others comes out, I will post that link in the show notes. But for now, I encourage you to try to look upon everything in your physical world and ask that it be revealed to you as a burning bush. All right, until next time, thanks. Thanks for dancing with me in this episode of The Secret Garden. Please consider watering the garden by becoming a donor on patreon.com/Heather Hamilton. You can also visit returningtoeden.com, where you'll find my writing on Substack, my books, information about spiritual direction sessions, and speaking. Until next time, remember that the whole world is a secret garden.